While XCOM 3 is nowhere to be seen or even confirmed to exist, this upcoming game looks like it might just make up for that with some very promising features. Alright, howdy folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll go over the basics of MENACE. If you want me to do a deep dive into the game, then please let me know in the comments, as there is a lot to go over in more detail in a future video. MENACE combines tactical turn-based tactics with RPG elements and is set to release in early access in the fall of 2025. The dynamic vehicle weapons system showcased recently is something I am very excited about. Now, if you already know something about the game, what are you most excited about seeing? Let me know down in the comments. Let's get going. The game is being made by the developers behind Battle Brothers, which currently sits at an 88% positive rating on Steam with over 22,000 reviews. In September of 2024, the developers announced that MENACE had already been wishlisted over 250,000 times, putting it in the Steam top 100 most wishlisted games. Set in a planetary system far away called Wayback, you are cut off from the chain of command. While initially sent to deal with bandits, rogue corporations, and leftover local governments, an unknown alien force has emerged and is now your top priority. MENACE, much like XCOM, has both a tactical combat element as well as a strategic one. The star map within the strategic part of the game acts as the hub and is similar to XCOM 2 in that you'll deploy your forces from a mobile base of operations. In MENACE's case, this is the cruiser Impetus. The Impetus can be upgraded with operational capability improvements, which come in armament, electronic, and hull variants. I'll touch on those a little bit more in a little bit. On board the Impetus, you can manage your squads and pilots, determine who you want to promote, customize squads, equipment, and more. You are going to want to make sure that you keep the crew's morale in check. If your soldiers don't recognize your authority, the aliens will be the least of your worries. Each deployment you do is part of an operation, which consists of a few missions. Within these missions, which are procedurally generated, you have to fulfill certain objectives like defending a base, rescuing civilians, or eliminating certain enemies. MENACE doesn't just take place on one planet. With different planets come different environments like desert, snow, or temperate. However, each environment also has biomes that branch off from it. The temperate environment, for example, can be a rocky, forest, or plains biome, each with different up and downsides in terms of visibility, cover, and more. The maps are also, again, procedurally generated, which gives you a lot of replayability and variety between different playthroughs. Now back to the Impetus's operational capability improvements, or OCIs. With a limited number of slots available, these are all dedicated to one of the specific variants I mentioned earlier: armament, electronic, or hull. With over 50 OCIs planned and even more coming during the game's development, there's a lot of room for, again, variety and replayability, especially when you consider you can actually have the same type of OCI module installed in multiple slots, giving you a stacking effect. A couple of examples of low-level or basic modules are a medbay to help heal soldiers faster out of combat, as well as an unguided missile strike or even a dropship strafing run. As you can see, not all these OCIs or upgrades are directly useful in the strategic mode, but a strafing run could obviously be great in a pinch in the tactical combat mode instead. A couple of other examples of off-map abilities are smoke screens, supply drops, area scans, and air-dropped mines. Now, most of these abilities will take a turn to actually deploy to the battlefield, so some forward planning and thinking will be critical to make the best use of them. In MENACE, you command one unit until it runs out of action points, and then it switches to the AI, who then let their unit run out of action points as well. It switches back to you, and so on. This means that the side who has more units will eventually not have to swap back and forth after the side with inferior numbers has used up all the action points on their units, potentially allowing you to do some movement that cannot be countered by the enemy directly. Units in MENACE are either an infantry squad or a vehicle. Now, most squads consist of about 5 soldiers, so they can be anywhere from 1 up to 9 soldiers in size. A squad has one shared hit point number. Say, for example, a 5-man team has 1,000 health. If they lose 200 health, one member goes down, 400 health, second member, and so on. These squads all have a squad leader, who is a specific character who not only leads them in battle, but also acts as the unit's point of contact during events outside of combat. When squads lose a team member, they lose out on firepower. Whether that means that, say, a 5-man team losing 2 of its members, equaling 40%, if that means that you're also losing out on 40% of your firepower, or how that is calculated, has not been specified. Squads can be given a large variety of different weapons, with each member in the squad using this chosen gun. However, squads with a special weapon slot can have one of the members use, say, a machine gun, rocket launcher, or any of the other special guns they have planned. MENACE will let you assign armors and equipment to these squads as well. However, you will be limited by the supplies you have collected, as well as the supply limit for the mission. The idea is that without this supply system, there's really no reason not to bring just the best equipment you have and give it to each soldier and use it in every battle. With the supply system in MENACE, it'll make more sense to have the, for example, backline mortar team only use a few pistols and basically wear no armor to allow your frontline troops to be equipped with better, more expensive, more supply costing gear. There's a lot of details here in the armor and accessory section. However, the majority of this is probably better for a more in-depth video down the line. Armor in MENACE will not only provide the wearer with protection, it can add skills or abilities as well, such as smoke launchers or thermal imaging cameras. The accessories can be as simple as a frag or smoke grenade, an extra ammo pouch, and a bunch more. Squads usually have about 2 of these, but up to 4 depending on squad leader perks and armor loadouts. Now, besides squads, vehicles are the other main type of unit. They are just a single entity and have a pilot instead of a squad leader. Vehicles have hit points too, however, when they get damaged, as there are of course no squad members to lose, they instead get more defects the lower their hit point pool goes, whether that's a disabled engine or an overloaded targeted computer, which can potentially decrease the accuracy, all the way up to catastrophic explosions, perhaps if the ammo rack was hit, are just a few examples given here. The squad leaders, or SLs in MENACE, are unique characters, each with backstories and specific perk trees. This means they are not randomly generated, which does allow the developers to give them a lot more personality in depth. However, if you lose too many of your squad leads, your campaign will be over. These SLs can have different action points, hit points, armor values, discipline, accuracy, detection, view range, concealment, as well as unique starting perks and perk trees. A lot of these do speak for themselves, though in a future video I do want to do a little bit more of a deep dive on this specifically. Discipline here is interesting to quickly mention. With higher discipline levels, meaning that your SL and the squad they control is less likely to flee from the battlefield under duress, such as suppressive fire. Talking about suppressive fire, there are a lot of calculations involved in how it applies to a unit. However, units in cover or wearing heavy armor get less suppressed versus units in the open or who are wearing light or no armor. Units with a low level of discipline, like local bandits or pirates, are more prone to being suppressed compared to hardened military veteran units. Suppression is also applied to tiles around a targeted area, though only a portion of it. Units that are suppressed at level 1 of 2 will lose half their accuracy and about a third of their action points, but they also gain a few buffs. Their defense and accuracy go up by a little bit as they are now forced to kneel. They also receive a little bit less damage and gain 1 concealment in return. However, when a unit is pinned down at level 2 of 2 of suppression, they are forced to lie down, they lose all of their action points altogether, and their view is now limited to just 1 tile around them. An interesting note here regarding suppression is the potential of using combat drugs, which reduces suppression instantly and gives a discipline bonus to the squad. It's said here these are going to be both rare and expensive, and I do wonder if there will be any debuffs associated with excessive use of these over time. There is so much more to talk about regarding MENACE that I wonder if even one in-depth video is going to be enough, but I did want to touch on this part here regarding some of their 3D artwork. The dynamic vehicle weapon system just looks so cool, like I mentioned in the beginning, allowing vehicle platforms to be equipped as freely as possible with a bunch of available weapons. Here's what looks to be sort of a LAV-25 equivalent vehicle in 21 variants with unique visual styles, from a minigun or heavy flamer armed variant to a transporter with a plasma rifle or automatic grenade launcher, and even rocket launcher, target designated variants, and a ton more. Of course, this is just one vehicle, but this is very promising for the level of variation and customization you'd expect to see both in your own and the enemy's armies. I've touched just on the very surface of MENACE, so do let me know if you want me to dive into the game some more for a future video. For now, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.